Okay, today I'm going to do a build description with a gameplay showcase about a little bit of an off-meta build that I've created that I think counters, the shotgun meta quite nicely. It has really great results. It has, fantastic potential to burst down enemy players. It's really fun to work with, and it's using a little bit of a different style mechanic. Now, before anyone, reacts poorly and says in the comments, "Oh, your stats are trash. You should be using some other gear set pieces. Why are you using all this stupid stuff here? It doesn't look good." The meter DPS now, more than ever, since this patch, is just useless, okay? Honestly, I would say don't even look at it. You're going to want to look at your base damage, your character sheet for critical hit damage, headshot damage, things like that. You're going to want to test it out in the firing range against other players. Just stop looking at the meter altogether. It's a really big pet peeve of mine when people, I log in and I join an incursion or something like that, and the first thing out of their mouth every time is, what's your DPS? Now, I know for a fact they're referring to my meter DPS, which is meaningless. There are inflationary stats, there are deflationary stats, there are so many different things that aren't properly calculated into the DPS meter. So whenever they ask me that, it tells me right off the bat they're not a very good player. Okay, maybe they're quick on the sticks, maybe they're very skilled in terms of landing shots, probably much better than I am. I can't say that they're bad in that regard, but they're not very knowledgeable of the game and how it works. So first things first, do not look at the primary DPS meter. Do not pay attention to it unless it's a very vague indicator. If you have like 50,000 on your assault rifle primary DPS on the meter, you probably have a really low DPS, but it's not indicative of what you're actually going to be able to do in fights. Now, this build right here is total proof of that. So what you're going to look at here after that is you're going to say, well, you're not utilizing your gear set bonuses. You're right, I'm not. This is a realistic build for a lot of players that maybe don't have enough time to farm every single gear set piece, all these different 268s. This is just cobbled together, but it performs extremely well. It's tanky enough to survive, especially with the increased damage, and it does utilize some good mechanics. It has 2-piece Sentry's Call, some increased headshot damage, and the core components are actually these two high-end pieces that I'll talk about in a few minutes. So I'm going to try and speed things up a little bit, go through, talk about each of my gear pieces, then my weapons, then my skills, then my talents, and then I'll get into some gameplay. So the first thing is this Striker's pack, Striker's backpack. It has 21% critical hit damage. I prioritize that because it's a flat damage increase through the duration of the fight, rather than something like skill power, which it will make my heal better, and it is a viable thing. You can swap this out for skill power if you at all want to, and it will work very well. But I chose to have critical hit damage, and I think it performs quite well. Really nice stamina roll on this. Ammo capacity is really nice. The skill attributes, I would prefer first aid, self-heal, or anything to do with pulse, but these, it's whatever. They don't really affect the build. Going down to the mod that's in here, stamina with critical hit chance, as much critical hit chance as you can possibly get. With the new versions of the SMGs, with the increased critical hit damage, if you can still achieve that critical hit chance cap, it's going to be a really big buff to SMGs actually. So it's really important to buff up your critical hit chance. This could be skill power before anyone says that. I could put skill power on here, get a increased effect out of my pulse, but I actually prefer to have critical hit chance because in case the enemy does employ a pulse countermeasure, I will still get the 1.5% critical hit chance. Yes, pound for pound, I may get more out of having skill power on this and then pulsing the target, but if they have conceal, or if they're using the smart cover with the pulse conceal mod on it, then my pulse is completely useless. So I prefer this unconditional bonus that will always be active for me. That's just a really important thing to note about this build. Moving down to these Hunter's Faith gloves. Yes, you're right, I'm not using any synergistic gear set combos right now, but these are great gloves for what I'm using them for. Firearms is really nice, SMG damage is really nice, critical hit chance, critical hit damage. I call that the perfect trio on a glove, on gloves. If you have weapon damage of the weapon type that you're prioritizing, then critical hit chance and critical hit damage, that's the perfect trio. I always look for that. That's going to boost your DPS the most, both on the meter and in reality. Skill attributes, turret damage, irrelevant, don't really care about that. And then I'm not actually checking off any of the Hunter's Faith bonuses. Even if I were, they wouldn't be relevant. Moving on to this Sentry's Call holster. Great rolls across the board, all over 700. That's super nice. Major attribute of armor, I suggest rolling that on every holster that you wear. It's one of the easier ways to hit the armor cap without having to prioritize mods with armor. And then pulse critical hit damage, augments my skill very nicely, and one of the best ones. Better than pulse, duration and things like that. The pulse critical hit damage is super important and really valuable. So that's a great holster for this build. Moving on to my second piece of Sentry's Call, I am ticking off the 10% headshot damage. It's not a huge deal, but it does help the build quite nicely. 21% critical hit damage. Again, this is flat across the board. You could roll armor or something like that if you're really struggling to reach that armor cap, but critical hit damage is something really valuable to roll, especially when using an SMG on your pad. So go ahead and roll that if you are going to follow this as a template for the build. As shock resistance, I think that's really valuable in any PvP build now, because with the increased 20% damage, you're actually going to get melted down really quickly. So anytime you're actually hard CC'd and you are stuck in one place. You can't react, you can't heal, you can't shoot, you can't move, and they start landing those headshots, you're going to drop extremely quickly, and having that shock resistance is going to be super valuable. First aid ally heal, not the worst, not the best. It couples nicely within a team setting, but you know, it's not something that's going to help you stay alive yourself, and it's really not something that's going to increase your damage output. That's going to do it for Sentry's Call. Now to talk about the two, centerpiece high ends in this build. So first is the Vigorous chest piece. Now this chest piece, I would say immediately, since this 20% buff to PvP damage, get rid of Reckless, okay? Just get rid of it. Don't ever look at even using it again. Something like the Vigorous chest piece is going to be so much more valuable to you, and I'll tell you why. With the Reckless chest piece, for the duration of the fight, you're going to see here, you're going to take increased incoming damage by 10%. That's the whole duration of the fight, okay? Now, if you get rid of Reckless, not only are you not taking that increased damage, now, yes, you are dealing 14% increased damage, but with the increase of the already, fairly large base damage that you can do to players, they were super tanky, so it did take a long time to kill them. But with the increase of 20%, the 14% stacked on top, while nice, is not critical. So the incoming damage is what we're focusing on. Not only do you remove that for the duration of the fight if you switch to the Vigorous chest piece, the Vigorous chest piece lets you use Booster Shot instead of Overdose on your heal, and that's going to allow you for a small period of time, whenever that skill is up, to actually increase your mitigation, take even less damage. That's going to completely counteract the 20% increased damage in PvP encounters, and it's going to make you more tanky, and you'll be dealing increased damage during that duration. Not only that, but you can also achieve the overheal, and things like Vicious, talents that hinge on having full health are going to be much more effective. So I would say immediately swap out Reckless for Vigorous, and consider running Vigorous in pretty much every build that you're going to do. It's really nice. It pairs very well with 4-piece gear sets. One of the ways that this build could be improved is if you had 4-piece Alpha Bridge and used 2 SMGs and still use the mask and the chest piece that I'm wearing. And Vigorous, it pairs nicely with pretty much every build out there. So consider using it. I can't put in enough good positive words for it. It's a really nice chest piece and a really great talent. Moving down to my mask, this is the second critical component of the build, Tenacious. Increased damage by 10% for 10 seconds when using a medkit. Now, I'm going to be popping medkits a lot. You can carry up to 9 now if you use the Paramedic Pack and 2 Alpha Bridge. I routinely do that. Sometimes I'll just use the Paramedic Pack. Either way, 7, 9, 5. That's still plenty of medkits. That's 5 up to 9 times that you're going to be proccing 10% damage for 10 seconds. And this is a weapon percentage damage increase, okay? So if you pair this with something like Booster Shot and you have Pulse Up at the same time, there are going to be different points in the fight with this build where you're snapshotting damage that's much higher than it should be, and your meter is not indicative of what that's going to be. So you can use all these different abilities at the same time, make sure that you're timing everything correctly, and then unload a magazine into a player, and you're going to do just absurd damage. It's really nice. And it's a really different style of build that I like a lot. I rolled Skill Power on the mask. That's a really solid attribute to have. I would advise having that on at least either your mask or your backpack. But you can also roll Critical Hit Chance if you want to. It's going to be super effective as well. Your Booster Shot just won't really do that much healing, and it won't really give you a big overshield. Scavenging doesn't matter. Ballistic Shield health doesn't matter. And then a Firearms mod with health. This could be much better. This could be a Firearms mod with Critical Hit Chance or a Skill Power. Again, I'm specifically using mods and gear set pieces that aren't perfect to show that this build can function to a really high caliber without having min-max gear. I could easily go to some of my other pieces. I have a Firearms mod with Skill Power right there. I could go ahead. In fact, I'll switch it out right now. Actually, no, I won't. I'll leave it in. This is the exact build that I was using when I did the gameplay showcase, so I'm not going to switch anything at all. It's better to see exactly how it performs with the mods that I had. But this is, you can easily switch this out for something better. There's a lot of potential options. Just looking at the mods real quick, I have a Stamina mod with Armor. I did need that to achieve the Armor cap in my chest piece. And then a Firearms mod with Critical Hit Chance. And then Stamina mod with Critical Hit Chance. A lot of crit chance. That's going to be really valuable to the build. And Stamina mod with crit chance. Like I said, this is more valuable to me than something that augments skill power because Pulse is conditional. So moving on to my weapons really quickly. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. My MP7 has Deadly, Responsive, and Predatory. Predatory I would much prefer to be capable. This build would be so much better if Predatory was capable. That's another percentage weapon damage increase, and it's just going to absolutely shred players. But Responsive is nice. Again, percentage weapon damage increase. All of these are going to pair so nicely to create, a way more powerful effect than your meter is actually going to show. And Deadly, really great on an SMG. I would say absolutely the best talent you can get on an SMG is Deadly. Maybe Brutal if you're really, quick on the sticks. You can hit that smaller head box, but Deadly for me is the most valuable. My shotgun, I'm not going to be using this hardly ever, but it's an M870, has really good base damage, has deadly, capable, and brutal. I don't really like capable. I would prefer something like brutal in the second slot and then responsive in the third slot, or even, you know, competent, or anything that's going to increase weapon percent damage, but this gets the job done, and I won't be using it often with this build. Moving back out, we're going to talk about abilities. I use Pulse with the Tactical Scanner for maximum critical hit damage and critical hit chance. This is what I'm definitely going to be using in every fight. Even if someone else on my squad has a better Pulse that they can activate more often, I'm still actually going to take Pulse because I want 100% uptime on the critical hit chance from Pulse. I don't care whose Pulse it is, but I want my enemies and my targets to be pulsed at all times, and that's going to really increase the amount of damage that I can deal. Then I got, you know, my heal with booster shot. I don't actually have overdose. My vigorous chest piece allows my booster shot heal to give me an overshield, and overall it's just much more effective than the overdose mod. It does heal for less, but at the same time the mitigation that you receive and timing that mitigation properly can help you survive things like sticky bombs. Even though you don't have final measure, the mitigation helps survive things like that. Helps you survive against shotgunners if you pop it correctly. There's a lot of reasons why this is going to help you survive in the current metagame a lot better than overdose would. So then, talking about my talents, I have triage, especially from a team play mechanic. Whenever I'm in a squad, I always run this. And then these two talents, critical save and on the move, are actually more important than ever. Using a medkit during low health increases damage resistance by 40%. Now, when I'm using a medkit at low health, not only am I getting that 40% mitigation, which makes me tankier, it helps to reduce the effect of the increased 20% net damage overall that players are doing. I'm also going to get from my Tenacious Mask a 10% increase to the damage I'm dealing. So medkits suddenly, with this build, become a really big swaying point in the pace of the fight and the damage you can deal. So using your medkits accordingly is going to actually really dictate how effective you are in team fights. Going on to on the move, again, if you kill a target while moving, you're always going to be doing that out in the open with an SMG, the way, at least the style that I play. This is going to give you 30% damage reduction, which is really nice and helps make you tankier. I am using right now One is None. You know, when I do hit those headshots, super valuable. It can drastically increase your damage output potential, especially with a small magazine gun like the MP7. If you are hitting headshots, it's going to extend that mag. You're getting more critical strikes, and overall, it's just a really great talent to have. You can swap this one out, though, if you really don't feel like you're going to hit many headshots for whatever else you want. There's a lot of different things you can pair it with. One interesting one is actually Tactical Advance. It's just another way to get percent weapon damage, and all of those bonuses stacked on top of each other can create a really powerful build. So I'm going to toss it over to some gameplay now and talk over it and show how the build performs. Okay, so right here, it's me and my buddy. It's going to be a 2v4, actually. Now, normally we wouldn't really fight randoms like this, but it is a showcase. And we're going to go rogue, a 2v4, like I said, and it performs quite well. They're using explosive bullets, so the CC is real. I get staggered a lot, but when I use that medkit at low health like I did just there, not only am I getting tankier, I'm increasing my damage, and 10 seconds is a long time. And as you can see, I just shredded through that player. No questions asked, he went down. This is another one. Look how quickly players melt. I'm doing massive critical strikes to the body and the head. The rate of fire on the MP7 is extremely quick. And with my, my damage mitigation raising up like it does when I use a medkit or when I use booster shot, I'm actually fairly well protected from shotgunners. If I see one is getting close to me, I can distance myself, I can pop my resistances, and, I'll be fairly safe from that. Now, I wouldn't have actually attacked this guy, but he did clap in my face. Don't really like that. So we ended up going rogue here. I couldn't kill him right off the bat. If I had landed more headshots, he would have dropped. I can land extremely high-powered headshots, when I have my bonuses active. And it really does surprise a lot of players. We actually got a couple messages, my buddy Uzi did, during this encounter or after this encounter, where they asked, like, what are you guys running? You absolutely destroyed us. So, the MP7, I can't say it enough, is probably the best gun in the game, in my eyes. If you have a contrary opinion or something to back it up, please share in the comments. I love the discussion. It's been going really great. We've had the best feedback ever, and the channel's growing at a really great pace. So, be active in the discussion, share feedback. It helps me improve as a content creator, and overall, it's just something that contributes to the overall channel vibe. It really helps the channel out. So if you have something to post down there, information of any kind, go ahead and do that. I welcome it. So as you can see, I'm really not, quick enough on the sticks to land those headshots. I could have dropped probably both of them right there if I had better aim. Someone who has better aim is going to get a lot better results from this build. But even so, I still find that this build is extremely powerful. Now, once you do land those headshots, I've seen upwards of 15,000 for critical strike headshots. And if you're hitting with 950 RPM, 15,000 to the head, that can just absolutely destroy other players. Faster than pretty much anything else. If you can get one-shotted with a shotgun, then yes, that might be better. But as you can see there, 11,000 headshot crits. I have a very high critical hit chance, especially when augmented with pulse. And overall, it makes for a really great build in terms of shredding through players quickly. This really reminds me of before patch 1.1, when everybody was running SMGs and crit builds before there were gear sets, and it was just really easy to melt players, and the first person to land those headshots would win. Now, I missed a lot of my shots there, but had I landed them, he would have gone down quite easily. He is actually a shotgun build. How potent his build is, I'm not very sure, but using booster shot like I did, using a med kit, the way I could have, is going to mitigate a ton of his damage, and I'm actually going to be have much more survivability than they're going to be able to deal with. So I feel very safe from shotgun builds with this build, and that's another reason why I constructed it, because I really don't like the feeling of getting one-shotted by anything at all, whether that's a sticky, a shotgun, or an NPC. I don't care what it is. I hate that feeling, and I know a lot of people do as well. So if you really don't like getting hit once and dying, go ahead and try this build out. It has great results. It performs very nicely. There are ways to improve it. Having something like Competent in the third slot on your SMG. There's a lot of better ways. Having a 4-set piece of Alpha Bridge even, and augmenting it with the Tenacious Mask, with the Vigorous Chest Piece. Those are two items that work very well to help combat this current meta of shotguns. Then, by all means do so, and share in the comments, your results from that. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I wanted to say that the shirts are still available, only for a limited time, less than 3 days now, and they will be discontinued permanently after this. So if you haven't gotten one, you do want one, go ahead and pick it up. We are intending to use those as kind of like an OG supporter, type deal. If we ever have events moving forward at festivals and things like that, we will have people that have those shirts have a lot of special privileges, VIP status. They can come back, they can play with us, they can hang out with us, things like that. So keep that in mind if you are interested in supporting the channel. We did offer these at 2,000. We've since crossed 5,000, so we're growing really quickly, and it's just a really nice thing to support the channel. So thank you to all my subscribers. It's been great. The growth has been fantastic. I really do. I aspire to create content that's worthy of the support I've been getting. So any feedback that you have, I understand there's a hissing in the microphone. That's almost completely fixed already. There are mics in the mail on the way to me, and once those are here, there will be no more hissing at all. So don't worry about that. It's taken care of. Now, I hope the build was helpful. I hope the information was helpful. There is a Facebook community that's growing really quickly. The link is down in the description. We're trying to keep that a really positive, really awesome place where you can match up. So if you have a single-player experience and you really haven't, been able to find a squad that you really fit in with, you haven't found your niche with that, then go ahead and sign up. Request to join the Facebook group. An admin will approve you, and then you can try and find a squad that you might fit well with, and get some gameplay going, complete some harder content in a smoother way. So I'm going to wrap it up there. As always, thank you for supporting the channel, and have a nice day.